Well, why are we here? Why are we doing this? After eating that wrap with lamb and all of those things, some of them I have no idea what they were, after eating all that, perhaps I don't need to ask that question. The eating in itself was a good enough reason. But no, that's not the only reason. Why are we, instead of having a worship service, why aren't we doing this properly? Why isn't everyone sitting in the pews in straight lines? Why haven't we got, a liturgy? Why aren't they doing Holy Communion properly? What's going on here? Why are we doing it like this? I think it's very important to do this, what we're doing now. And the reason is because every time we have that little wafer and that bit of wine up the front in that sort of fairly representative regimental way, we're representing this. This is the real thing. This is more authentically what Jesus is talking about. This is what Paul was talking about in his letter to the Corinthians, when that's where we get our words of institution, which I'm going to read shortly, as we celebrate the Lord's Supper, and we celebrate the institution of the Lord's Supper like the first time it was done. It was done like this. This is what Jesus was talking about. And I think it's very important to keep this in mind, to keep this picture, what we're doing now, to keep this in mind when you think about, or when we later do the thing up the front, which we're not going to do tonight. But on the Sundays, when you go into church and you have your Holy Communion, whatever that looks like, it's always a bit more representative. It's not like this. You don't have Paul coming to your church. The part of the pastor's education is not a food preparation course. Maybe it should be, because this is more authentic. And I think there's a lot we can learn from this, because what we've got here is a bit like, you can imagine the original Passover would have been a bit scary and solemn. They had the word from God through Moses. There was this prophetic voice come through, and you've all got to do this, and the word spread, and they must have had a good grapevine, because everything got through to all of the houses, and this is what they were to do. And the word got through without the Egyptians hearing, so there must have been, pretty good confidentiality going on. But the word got through, and there would have been a bit of a tense moment. We've got to do this, we've got to be dressed, ready to go. We've got a staff in hand, and we're going to be eating this and eating it in a special way, and the lamb's got to be prepared in a special way. There's all of this stuff going on for the first time. Could have been quite intense. But as time went on, as they celebrated it year after year, it would have become a bit like our Christmas dinner. Unless your Christmas dinner is a terrible affair where you have, some horrible auntie come and an uncle or a cousin that drinks too much and tries to drool over everyone. Unless it's something like that, wouldn't have been like that. But but a Christmas dinner where the family gets together, where they have these plans and they all come together and they eat yabbies. Well, that's in Australia anyway. They gather together and everyone has a good laugh, and they tell stories, and although a Christian Christmas dinner, it's a wonderful thing, because there's always this background of celebrating the reason we're here. We've probably just been to church, we've just had the tea towel parade where all the kids have a tea towel on their head. That's what my grandfather called it. And they've done the play and everything like that, and then you come home, and then you've got dinner preparing, and Granny's done a chicken casserole or whatever, and someone's done My grandma used to do the Christmas pudding with shillings and threepences in it. And long after decimal currency came in, she would save her cooking money because they were made of silver, and so they didn't carry the bacteria or gungy stuff into your food that modern money would. I don't know how Bitcoin works, but you probably can't use it for your Christmas pudding. So she had all that, and that kind of thing, that kind of flavour, where you sit around and you chat and you're just taking your time. There's no rush, but this is the big event for the year. This is a family gathering. I think Passover would have much become like that. And I think as we look at modern Passovers, still being carried out by the Jewish people, it's that kind of thing, where they gather together and they feast and they talk and they tell the stories, and the old stories come out of what God did for his people and how God today still loves his people and will rescue them. That's the picture we need. That's what church is. Anything else is a dim reflection. Anything but, Jesus coming to his disciples and washing their feet. What's that all about? Maybe the servants were on strike then, but, Jesus' travelling band of disciples going around, they didn't have servants. There was no one rostered on for that evening for the foot washing thing. And it was essential. It was an essential part of hospitality, foot washing. It's just something that happened. We could do that ceremony here. I've been thinking of doing it maybe next year, but it wouldn't be the same because it's not something we do in society now. It's going to mean something different. It's a useful thing to do, but back then it was something that should happen to welcome guests into your home, because they've been out in the streets and wearing sandals. Everything's dusty. There's no bitumen, and they just need their feet washed to make them feel comfortable. And Jesus did that. Actually, a bit of a question, why didn't anyone else? How did Jesus get... he would have thought, this is the ideal thing for me to do. He wanted to do it, and he did it for a very special reason. But why didn't anyone else jump in? I think that was part of Peter's, no, Lord, you shouldn't wash my feet. I think he was feeling a little bit guilty. He should have offered. But we're not told that. I'm just guessing. What was he saying with the foot washing? This is the kind of thing that we should be doing for each other. Let's serve one another. Let's show each other that we care by taking care of each other's most basic needs. Let's show one another hospitality. That's what he was trying to get across with the foot washing thing. As I've done this for you, I want you to do this for each other. You too should wash each other's feet. And he's not saying we should walk around with a little water pistol and squirt one another's feet. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is we should serve one another. We should take care of one another's needs. We should be so concerned about one another's lives. We should so love one another that we want each other to be cared for, to feel cared for, to be so connected that we feel like family. Jesus is defining the church here. So much so that he does a Moses. Right? That was the defining moment for the people of Israel when they felt fully God's people. When Moses walked down with those commandments. Right? the world's first download from the sky. Walk down with the commandments, and with these commandments I show that you are my people. Right now you've got commandments from your own God that you can follow, and this is how you can be my people. So Jesus does a Moses, and he says a new commandment. That's the significance of that, is that Jesus is defining the new expression of God's people. This new redeemed people. They don't know they're redeemed yet because Jesus hasn't gone to the cross. You know, you've got to wait a day and a half for that, or 2 days. We've got to wait a little bit for that. No, it's only 1 day. Yeah, we've got to wait a day for that before he goes to the cross. And then another couple of days to realise the relevance of it. But here, he's defining, these are the new people of God, the new Jerusalem, the new Israel, and he's defining them. How does he define them? Not by thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, but that you love one another as I have loved you. This is the defining move of the people of God. As you enjoy as you have enjoyed your meal, and there's more to come. We just want to boost your sugar levels a little bit yet. But as you enjoy one another's company, as you enjoy sitting and chatting, as you enjoy finding out a little bit more about each other, please do. Because this is what it's about. Coming to grow, to know one another, to love one another. Which is probably a little bit more of an ask than your normal sit-down meal together with people that you don't know very well. But this is the goal. This is what Jesus wanted. That we would grow to know one another, to love one another, to love him, to love God, to know the love of God, to know just how much God loves each one of you. And the way he did that was to share a meal with us and to say this meal is going to continue on, and then to die for us, to lay down his life for us. The next thing that we do, if my phone would just wake up, is our next reading, which I promised, and so I shall fulfil my promise by reading 1 Corinthians 11:23. For I received from the Lord what I also passed on to you. The Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." The same way, after the supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. For whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." So we're going to proclaim the Lord's death again. We're going to share this part of the meal, this Lord's Supper together. Now this is Holy Communion. If you're not there yet, if you're not, it was usual that the kids weren't involved in this part of the meal, not the little kids or the uninitiated, whatever. But two, if you're not there yet, then, or if you're not comfortable receiving it, then please don't feel that you have to, right? Just because you feel that I'm, pushing you into it or something like that. But even if you're not eating and drinking right now, you're still participating, you're still a part of it, because we're all sitting at the table together, young and old, visitors, whoever. We're all here together, experiencing this together. So, as I come around with this bread, because Jesus took bread, and just normal bread, just like we've had for tea or dinner, wherever you come, whichever part of the country you come from. And he broke it and said, "This is my body." And then later he took the cup. Now, each one of you have already got a cup. If you need a little top up, then please approach the table and get some, because then you'll have it when I come round. But I'm going to come round and give you a little bit of this. And Jesus just changed the context of what they had at the table. And he said, this is going to be my body. And it's given for you. So as I come round, I'm going to give the bread first, and then we're all going to drink together, all right? So, and if you're not receiving, just don't put your hand up, all right? If you're receiving, just hold your hand out, and if you're not, just leave it there. What's that? No, just eat it as I come through. Otherwise you might lose it. All right, we've overcome all the questions. Good.